St. Paul's Cathedral was the pivot of the main fire. All around it, the flames were leaping up into the sky. There the cathedral stood, magnificently firm, untouched in the very center of all this destruction. As I walked along the streets, it was almost impossible to believe that these fires could be subdued. I was walking between solid walls of fire. Roofs of shops and office buildings came down with a roaring crash. Panes of glass were cracking everywhere from the heat, and every street was crisscrossed with innumerable lengths of hose. Men were fighting the fires from the top of 100-foot ladders, shot up from the street. Others were pushing their way into the burning buildings, taking the jet to the core of the fire. There was a vast number of men there, and apart from occasionally helping to lay out a hose, I saw that there was nothing I could do to help. And so I went instead to some of the public shelters. They were underground shelters mostly, and the buildings on top of them were alight. The people had to be got away from them, and got away quickly, and then taken across to the underground station. Sparks were driving down the street like a heavy snowstorm. Obviously, small children couldn't walk across to the station in this, and so some of us went backwards and forwards, carrying them in our arms. I took off my mackintosh and covered them up completely with it. It must have been rather frightening for them to be carried across by someone they didn't know and not being able to see anything. But it was the only way to protect them from those sparks. And by the time we got the last one across, we should have had to do it anyway, because the building above the station was on fire. Luckily, the station escaped, and they were all moved off in trains to get food and drink, and then some much-needed sleep.
Tonight, I speak to the Italian people, and I speak to you from London, the heart of the British Islands, and of the British Commonwealth and Empire. I speak to you what the diplomatists call words of great truth and respect. We are at war. That is a very strange and terrible thought. Who ever imagined, until the last few melancholy years, that the British and Italian nations would be trying to destroy one another? We have always been such friends. We were the champions of the Italian Risorgimento. We were the partisans of Garibaldi. We were the admirers of Mazzini and Cavour. All that great movement towards the unity of the Italian nation, which lighted the 19th century, was aided and was hailed by the British Parliament and British public. Our fathers and our grandfathers longed to see Italy freed from the Austrian yoke, and to see all minor barriers in Italy swept away, so that the Italian people and their fair land might take an honored place as one of the leading powers upon the continent, and as a brilliant and gifted member of the family of Europe and of Christendom. We have never been your foes till now. In the last war against the barbarous Huns, we were your comrades. For 15 years after that war, we were your friends. Although the institutions which you adopted after that war were not akin to ours, and diverged, as we think, from the sovereign impulses which had commanded the unity of Italy, we could still walk together in peace and goodwill. Many thousands of your people dwelt with ours in England. Many thousands of our people dwelt with you in Italy. We liked each other. We got on well together. There were reciprocal services, there was amity, there was esteem. And now we are at war. Now we are condemned to work each other's ruin. Your aviators have tried to cast their bombs upon London. Our armies are tearing and will tear your African empire to shreds and tatters. We are now only at the beginning of this somber tale. Who can say where it will end? Presently, we shall be forced to come to much closer grips. How has all this come about? And what is it all for? Italians, I will tell you the truth. It is all because of one man. One man, and one man alone, has ranged the Italian people in deadly struggle against the British Empire, and has deprived Italy of the sympathy and intimacy of the United States of America. That he is a great man, I do not deny. But that after 18 years of unbridled power, he has led your country to the horrid verge of ruin, that can be denied by none. It is all one man who, against the crown and royal family of Italy, against the Pope and all the authority of the Vatican and of the Roman Catholic Church, against the wishes of the Italian people who had no lust for this war. One man has arrayed the trustees and inheritors of ancient Rome upon the side of the ferocious pagan barbarians. There lies the tragedy of Italian history, and there stands the criminal who has wrought the deed of folly and of shame. What is the defense that is put forward for his action? It is, of course, the quarrel about sanctions and Abyssinia. Let us look at that. Together, after the last war, Italy and Britain both signed the Covenant of the League of Nations, which forbade all parties to that government to make war upon each other or upon fellow members of the League, and bound all signatories to come to the aid of any member attacked by another. Presently, Abyssinia came knocking at the door, asking to be a member. We, British, advised against it. We doubted whether they had reached a stage in their development which warranted their inclusion in so solemn a pact. But it was Signor Mussolini who insisted that Abyssinia should become a member of the League, and who therefore bound himself and bound you and us to respect their covenanted rights. Thus the quarrel arose. It was out of this that it sprang. And thus, although no blood was shed between us, old friendships were forgotten. But what is the proportion of this Abyssinian dispute, arising out of the covenant of the League of Nations to which we had both pledged our word? What is it in proportion compared to the death grapple in which Italy and Britain have now been engaged? I declare, and my words will go far, that nothing that has happened in that Abyssinian quarrel can account for or justify the deadly strife which has now broken out between us. Time passed. Then the great war between the British and French democracies and Prussian militarism or Nazi overlordship began again. Where was the need for Italy to intervene? Where was the need to strike at prostrate France? Where was the need to declare war on Britain? Where was the need to invade Egypt, which is under British protection? We were content with Italian neutrality. During the first 8 months of the war, we paid great deference to Italian interests. But all this was put down to fear. We were told we were effete, worn out, an old chatterbox people, mouthing outworn shibboleths of 19th century liberalism. But it was not due to fear. It was not due to weakness. The French Republic, for the moment, is stunned. France will rise again. But the British nation and Commonwealth of nations across the globe, and indeed, I may say, the English-speaking world, are now aroused. They are on the march, or on the move, and all the forces of modern progress and of ancient culture are ranged behind them. Why have you placed yourselves, you who were our friends and might have been our brothers, why have you placed yourselves in the path of this avalanche, now only just started from its base, to roll forward on its predestined track? Why, after all this, were you made to attack and invade Greece? I ask why, but you may ask why too, because you were never consulted. The people of Italy were never consulted. The army of Italy was never consulted. No one was consulted. One man, and one man alone, ordered Italian soldiers to ravage their neighbors' vineyards. Surely the time has come when the Italian monarchy and people, who guard the sacred center of Christendom, should have a word to say upon these awe-inspiring issues. Surely the Italian army, which has fought so bravely on many occasions in the past, but now evidently has no heart for the job, should take some care of the life and future of Italy. I can only tell you that I, Churchill, have done my best to prevent this war between Italy and the British Empire. And to prove my words, I will read you the message which I sent to Signor Mussolini in the fateful days before it began. Cast your minds back to the 16th of May of this year, 1940. The French front had been broken. The French army was not yet defeated. The great battle in France was still raging. Here is the message which I sent to Signor Mussolini. Now that I have taken up my office as Prime Minister and Minister of Defense, I back to our meetings in Rome and feel a desire to speak words of goodwill to you as chief of the Italian nation across what seems to be a swiftly widening gulf. Is it too late to stop a river of blood from flowing between the British and Italian peoples? We can, no doubt, inflict grievous injuries upon one another and maul each other cruelly and darken the Mediterranean with our strife. If you so decree, it must be so. But I declare that I have never been the enemy of Italian greatness, nor ever at heart the foe of the Italian lawgiver. It is idle to predict the course of the great battles now raging in Europe. But I am sure that whatever may happen on the continent, England will go on to the end, even quite alone, as we have done before. And I believe, with some assurance, that we shall be aided in increasing measure by the United States and indeed by all the Americans. I beg you to believe that it is in no spirit of weakness or of fear that I make this solemn appeal, which will remain on record. Down the ages, above all other calls, comes the cry that the joint heirs of Latin and Christian civilization must not be ranged against one another in mortal strife. Hearken to it, I beseech you, in all honor and respect, before the dread signal is given. It will never be given by us. That is what I wrote upon the 16th of May. This is the reply which I received from Signor Mussolini on the 18th. I reply to the message which you have sent me in order to tell you that you are certainly aware of grave reasons of a historical and contingent character which have ranged our two countries in opposite camps. Without going back very far in time, I remind you of the initiative taken in 1935 by your government to organize at Geneva sanctions against Italy, engaged in securing for herself a small space in the African sun without causing the slightest injury to your interests and territories or those of others. I remind you also of the real and actual state of servitude in which Italy finds herself in her own sea. If it was to honor your signature that your government declared war on Germany, you will understand that the same sense of honor and of respect for engagements assumed in the Italian-German treaty guides Italian policy today and tomorrow in the face of any event whatsoever. That was the answer. I make no comment upon it. It was a dusty answer. It speaks. Anyone can see who it was that wanted peace and who it was that meant to have war. One man and one man only was resolved to plunge Italy, after all these years of strain and effort, into the whirlpool of war. And what is the position of Italy today? Where is it that the Duce has led his trusting people after 18 years of dictatorial power? What hard choice is open to them now? It is to stand up to the battery of the whole British Empire on sea, in the air, and in Africa, and to the vigorous counterattack of the Greek nation, or, on the other hand, to call in Attila over the Brenner Pass with his hordes of ravenous soldiery and his gangs of Gestapo policemen to occupy, to hold down, and to protect the Italian people, for whom he and his Nazi followers cherish the most bitter and outspoken contempt that is on record between races. There is where one man, and one man only, has led you. And there I leave this unfolding story until the day comes, and come it will, when the Italian nation will once more take a hand in shaping its own fortunes.
The fire brigade and auxiliary fire services have done and are doing their usual splendid work. But we must leave them free to fight big fires. The country needs you to see that they have as few fires to fight as possible. Many fire parties are already giving the model and the needed help. We need more still, everywhere. We must quickly get to the point of organization and readiness where not a single incendiary, wherever it falls, has the chance to take firm hold.
My mother and I were in the house alone when the bomb hit the house next door. We had to get out and move the wreckage as quickly as we could. We went into a surface shelter where we stayed until the end of the raid. Then the next day we started out and we walked until we got to a little place called Stoneleigh, where they put us up for the night. Then 2 days later we got another house, and I'm afraid that was bombed last night, so now we're in the same position.
I think I'd better interview my staff.
Can I do your nails, sir?
Here she is, Mrs. Mott, the private enterprise.
Oh, I love 'em, sir. Whether they're swatters or old sweats.
I know you do, you old camp follower. If you're not swinging the leg, you're presenting arms.
I'm an old cantina, sir.
Yes, I've seen you blowing up the sausages with the bellows. Well, how are you getting on with your Sergeant Major, Mrs. M?
Oh, he's as saucy as ever, sir.
Oh?
Why, only yesterday. He wanted to see me work ticket.
Was he? Then he expected you to pass out, eh?
I repelled his invasion exercises.
Oh? What did you do? Take off your gas mask?
Aye, sir. I've got another follower now, sir. He's a gunner.
Oh, is he? I bet you make him come out of his shell.
Oh, yes, sir. He says I'm a wicked little barrage.
Vor der Kaserne, vor dem großen Tor, stand eine Laterne und steht sie noch davor. So wollen wir uns da wiedersehen, bei der Laterne wollen wir stehen, wie einst Lili Marleen, wie einst Lili Marleen.
Ist es Ihnen aufgefallen, dass Sie dieses Lied schon lange nicht gehört haben? Warum wohl? Vielleicht deshalb, weil Lalla Anderson im Konzentrationslager ist? Wie immer dem sei, die Worte des Liedes sind heute nicht mehr aktuell. Wie würden sie lauten, wenn Lili Marleen ihrem Soldaten heute einen Brief schriebe?
Ich muss heute an dich schreiben, mir ist das Herz so schwer. Ich muss zu Hause bleiben und lieb dich doch so sehr. Du sagst, du tust nur deine Pflicht, doch trösten kann mich das ja nicht. Ich warte an der Laterne, deine Lili Marleen. Was ich still hier leide, weiß nur der Mond und ich. Ein Schiene auf uns beide, nun scheint er nur auf mich. Mein Herz tut mir so bitter weh, wenn ich an der Laterne steh, mit meinem eigenen Schatten, deine Lili Marleen. Vielleicht hältst du in Russland, vielleicht in Afrika, doch irgendwo da fällst du, so willst dein Führer ja. Und wenn wir doch uns wiedersehen, möge die Laterne stehen in einem anderen Deutschland, deine Lili Marleen. Der Führer ist ein Schinder, das sehen wir hier genau. Zu Waisen macht er Kinder, zur Witwe jede Frau. Und wer an allem schuld ist, den will ich an die Laterne. Deine Lili Marleen.
If our will is strong enough, then nothing can fail. Germany, Sieg Heil.
Constable Death Road on 22 stations ground.
The special on file at 28 stations reporting, sir. Message from the fire on Badette Road. It is a building of 5 floors, about 150 by 100 feet. It is a general warehouse, well alight.
You see this? Order 36's ladders to Commercial Street.
He wants a return voucher to Kimpton, is it? Kimpton in Hertfordshire.
Yes, exactly.
You just want to go down and see them settled and settle up matters and then you'll... Any financial assistance you require. If you want any clothes, I'll help you with what you want. Will you fit it out all right with clothes? What sort of clothes do you require? Underwear and boots? Underwear and boots. Does that suit you? You've been bombed out and lost all your clothing where you are. This is your identification card.
A nice new pair of shoes she's managed to find, and we were just short, weren't we? The Macintoshes are very nice. Come along, dear, because I wanted to finish up with Mother.
Hello, everybody. How are you getting on with your meals? Any complaints? No. We hope to do better when we've got more crockery and more helpers and a better stove. We hope you've enjoyed it all. What did you have today?
Roast beef, potatoes, mutton, lady, sorry. A carving like that, Ritter. And plenty of vegetables.
And a pudding you've had, haven't you? Or you're going to have a boiled pudding.
Yes, lady.
We hope you've enjoyed it. And what have you had?
I'm just waiting now, Mum.
You're waiting. Well, I hope there'll be enough for you.
I
We're doing our best.
Yeah, there's plenty there for us.
We've got a rotten stove, and we're hoping somebody would be kind enough to give us a better one.